It really does seem like the Bears and Niners have more talented quarterbacks sitting on the bench at this point, huh? I mean, not surprising, right? They traded up for those guys. They picked them in the first round. We know that they're the future in both of those places. But I think every single time we get a glimpse of Trey Lance and Justin Fields, even if it's a tad uneven, which both of their performances from this weekend were, it's still so hard to face life with Andy Dalton and Jimmy Garoppolo after you see even the flashes from these guys.
Yeah, and I mean, these are not apples to apples situations. I mean, I think the Niners
the Bears have actively said that Andy Dalton is their starting quarterback multiple times.
And in San Francisco, Kyle Shanahan is not saying that Jimmy Garoppolo is their starter for week 1, but
leave that door open just to crack.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, just like he did with the pre-draft stuff, he's going to let us run with it until we can't run with it any further. But just the situation seems so different. The guys ahead of them seem a little bit different. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is more of a kind of a known quantity within that San Francisco offense. He's getting a lot less work. I mean, he played 1 series against the Chargers. I believe that was Sunday night. So he barely played. I mean, they're really going to kind of let Trey Lance get reps because he hadn't played in 500 days or something. I mean, he had barely played football. So they're really letting him get more involved in the offense, but they're also holding stuff back. We haven't gotten to see any of the cool running stuff. We haven't gotten to see any of the special packages. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they integrate Trey Lance. I think the situation in Chicago is he's clearly the better quarterback. I think he's better for their team right now. He's the better player. He's more dynamic. But kind of like we talked about last week, the rest of that team is kind of a mess. So I think you really have to look more long-term there, where in San Francisco, we can really talk about it as a short-term. Are they better week 1 with Trey Lance than Jimmy Garoppolo?
Yeah, not much has changed. I still have a similar stance on this, even after watching those games this weekend, after rewatching them. I still feel like the Niners, if they think he's the better option, just put him in there and let him grow as he's going to grow, because you're not actively hurting his development. You might not think he's not 100% ready, because there are some throws that are scattershot. There are some decisions that make you scratch your head a little bit, but he's a rookie quarterback. He's only going to learn by playing, and I don't think you actively hurt his development by him being in the game when you look at everything around him. You could say the same thing about Justin Fields. Well, he'll only learn by playing, but I do think the downside is much greater there than it might be with Trey Lance. And I think that you have to take that into account. And I understand the argument that, well, he's a more mobile quarterback. Could he more easily deal with the lack of the protection issues? And that gives me pause. I'm gonna slow down on that. I don't think that's the way that you should think about it. I also don't think that people talking about how, well, you shouldn't feed him to the Rams in week 1. Well, when then is he ready to play? It's like, it doesn't, you don't have to put anything on there. You don't have to say this is when he should play, this is when he shouldn't play. I just don't think you lose anything by letting him sit there and watch for the first month. I think you lose less by doing that than throwing him out there and letting him get hit over and over and over again when the offensive line isn't settled. Maybe by week 1, they do feel it's a little bit settled. Maybe Peters is the left tackle. Jermaine Ifedi was back at practice today, and they do feel much better about it 2 weeks from now than they did a week ago. But I still feel like giving yourself a little bit more time to sort all of that is not the worst idea in the world.
So were you watching on your phone at this family reunion?
Correct.
So what did you do at the family reunion when Justin Fields got his helmet knocked off?
I put my phone down and went for a small walk. I did not like it at all. And obviously that's not an offensive line thing. And many people pointed out it's an empty protection issue thing.
Yeah. That's
something that's going to happen when you learn. But it was hard to watch. It was hard to look at that over and over again. I've seen that hit more times than I'd care to admit at this point.
I mean, I was kind of surprised that the other guy didn't get actually ejected, that the guy from Buffalo, the linebacker, that New York didn't kind of pause the game to review that. He will certainly get fined for that hit. I mean, he can be expecting that letter coming to his locker this week. But yeah, I mean, but look, he popped right back up. I mean, I probably looked worse than it was, but that was that moment that I was sitting at my desk doing some edits and I cursed. I was like, oh man. And I'm typing it to my editor, and because that's right. I mean, that's not what you want to see. So
that's the last thing you want to see. And that's one of those scenarios where that's why Corey Linsley is in with the Chargers right now.
Right.
It's so when you're looking at that, when you see that look and you see that linebacker walk down, a veteran center is going to turn around and be like, hey, you see that over there? That's bad. We need to do something about that. That didn't happen from neither the center nor the quarterback. and you get your rookie quarterback's head almost torn off, which is never good for anyone. So, yes, I was watching on my phone propped up against a can, as I am wont to do in those scenarios. Not being the best party guest, I'll admit that.